Good morning. So today we're going to talk about a topic that is in everyone's minds and lips, tariff. Yeah. So I'm Peggy van de Plage. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. So what I want to address today is really this art, which is as much an art and a science that is dodging tariff. And I want to talk about what are the strategic moves that are available to you and that are legal, obviously, for you to dodge tariffs. So just stay with me and you will learn how you can be one of the smart businesses that is actually dodging tariffs. So, and if you've been following my podcast, you know I've covered a wide range of topics from lobbying, navigating business uncertainty, pension funds investing locally, lowering trade barriers within countries. And these are all critical pieces of a puzzle, when it comes to creating a stable and profitable business environment. But today, I really, really want to dive into tariff because it's a really high stake issue. And I'm sure if you're reading any newspaper, whether from the Financial Times to Globe and Mail to Wall Street Journal and anything in between, there is not one day where tariffs are not front and center. So I want to talk about how companies are working around them and actually what are the strategy that actually work. Because again, you want to bend the rules, but you want to bend the rules legally. That's a tradition in business. So and tariff has really become a business headache for centuries. Like it started in 1881 that there was a funny story actually in the US in 1881. Custom officials, they caught a sugar importer who was altering the color of the product to actually game the tariff system. And actually, the Supreme Court ruled that it was legal. So dodging or playing around tariff is not new. 1881. When you fast forward to today, companies are literally playing chess with trade regulations in order to stay competitive. And with the Trump administration that is threatening new duties on imports, and not just threatening, actually, some of them have already been put in place here in Canada, in Mexico, and in other parts of the world. So businesses really must get creative to protect their bottom line. So um, and tariff, if you're not familiar with them yet, which I doubt anyone is by now, but anyway, it is not just taxes. These are really tools of economic warfare. Like they are used as a negotiation lever. That's that. So companies face two choices when they have taxes: whether they absorb the cost, and obviously that means they earn their profits, or they find legal ways to sidestep them. And when you think that 4 billion, I mentioned that in a previous podcast, 4 billion was spent on lobbying in the US in 2023, it is very clear that businesses are actively shaping trade policies to their advantage. So if you don't have a team of lobbyists on speed dial, that's fine. Here are what smart companies are doing. And, they are not just rolling over and paying up. So the first thing is tariff engineering. And it's really this idea of redesigning your product to reclassify it in a lower range of tariff. So here are a few examples. So and that is one of the most effective strategy, by the way. It's really tweaking product designs to fall into this lower tariff category. So Converse, I'm sure you know Converse, the Chuck Taylor shoes. So they added a thin layer of fabric under their insole. So the shoes, instead of being classified as sneakers with 48% tariff, were classified as slippers with 7.5%. That's a good ROI on a thin layer of fabric. Columbia Sportswear, they added pockets below the waist to reclassify shirts into blouses because blouses, again, they have lower tax it's in a lower tax categories. So you can see example, so Spanish exporters who shifted to product varieties that were exempt from tariff, for example. So it's not really redesign, it's just like changing their offering. There was I saw there was some Chinese home appliance that identify 6 different type of design strategy in order to reduce the tariff. So redesigning your product in order to get a better reclassification is something that's really high on the list. And sometimes these are very minor reclassification, as you've heard. And one thing I want to mention, which you might not know, so the US is the only nation in the world that has gender-based tariff. Yes. So, and these tariffs are higher on women's wear than on men's wear. So here is a nice opportunity if you're in fashion to reclassify some of your products from female to male. And anyway, it's fashionable to be wearing gender neutral clothes. So that's a great opportunity. So the second big opportunity to decrease tariff is maneuvering around the country of origin. That unfortunately is a bit more complicated and a bit costly, but I wanted to talk about it nonetheless. So again, shifting production entirely to a tariff-friendly country is very costly. But you can think about partial production relocation, supplier diversification, contract manufacturing, all of that can be game changing. So if you look at Hyundai, the car manufacturer, so their cable harnesses are manufactured in China, but because the final assembly and packaging is done in South Korea, they benefit from preferential trade agreement with the US. So that's one of the technique, assembling in a country that is more friendly, or at least seen more friendly with your end client. You see a lot of companies that shift parts of their supply chain to countries, so from China to Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, because it is thought to be more friendly. But again, I don't know how long it will be seen by the US as friendly countries. So it might be a game of whack-a-mole. You're moving from China to Vietnam, then Vietnam is getting tariff, and then you're moving to Malaysia, and then you're moving to Thailand. So anyway, that can end up being costly as well. So that's something that's a game to play, but obviously you don't know for sure. One thing is really about supplier diversification. So obviously switching suppliers to avoid regions hit by high tariff, but it's also swapping around a trade restriction. So you can neutralize the tariff increase by also substituting products from unaffected countries. So that allows you to minimize your cost and absorb the tariff. You can also obviously shift only critical portion of your supply chain. For example, from assembly in China, you go to Brazil. So that would reduce your tariff burden very significantly. So depending on the type of products you manufacture, because services, it's another animal, but depending on the type of products you manufacture, there is some play around where you assemble, where you source your part, what type of parts, or can you substitute these parts sometimes with a different product or with a different location, different supplier. So there is definitely a total realignment of the supply chain that can be done here. The third strategy is a strategy that is very little known actually. There is a court ruling from 1988 that allows importers to pay tariffs based on the manufacturer price, not the higher retail price that are charged by middlemen. So if you're buying a product that is resold to you by a middleman, obviously this middleman has taken his cut, you can pay tariff on the initial product, the one that was manufactured. So that is very important for retailer to understand that they can skip basically the middleman and pay tariff on the original pricing. So that was very, very well, especially for brands that source from multiple suppliers before selling finished goods. So that's something you should definitely look into. The fourth things, it's an interesting one, and it's really helpful for cash flow, is delaying duties with bonded warehouses and temporary bonds. So what does it mean? That means that because obviously, as I said, cash flow is king, companies are increasingly using bonded warehouses where the goods can be stored tariff-free until they are sold. So you don't pay the tariff before your products are sold. Obviously, that's a good relief. And the second strategy is temporary import bonds, and that defer duties on products that are set to be re-exported. So you don't pay tariff. So these are a couple of strategies that would be helpful, again, to manage cash flow, and what company doesn't want to manage cash flow. Fifth strategy is more around operational tactics, and it's about adjusting the logistic and operations to minimize tariff impact. So first thing is around inventory management. And there was some research that were made that was showing that a 30% tariff will lead into a 65% reduction in inventory to sales ratio. So it really shows that firms adjust their stock levels in order to weather tariff changes. And that again is also to manage the cash flow. You know, a lot of that you're hearing are actually best practices that should be done with or without tariff. You know what I'm thinking, and I spoke about that in the past, when I look at the impact of this economic warfare that the US has started with some of its allies and the world in general. Well, it's not great, but at the same time, it allows everyone to look at the way their country operates, the way their business operates, and put in place best practices that have not been put in place before. Internal trade tariff, for example, is a good example. So another operational tactics is it's about timing. So you've seen a lot of companies that have pre-order goods before the new tariff took effect in order to reduce exposure. So that's something that obviously require you stay on top of the game, and that you have a cash flow, or at least you have the confidence that you're going to be able to sell what you're pre-ordering, pre-buying. But that is also a tactic in order to reduce the impact of the tariff. It's a very short term, but it's a technique you can use. So it's obvious that the businesses are very ingenious when it comes to navigate tariff. I mean, I would say I love intellectual curiosity, and I admire that. But governments are also quite savvy at tightening the noose. So an example was in 2008, the US Customs, they attempted to scrap this first sale rule, but trade lawyers were able to successfully fight back. But it doesn't mean that this type of clampdown cannot exist on future workarounds. So again, it's this game of whack-a-mole. Businesses find new creative solutions. State governments look at closing the loopholes. When new creative solutions arise, and so on. So there is a bit of a game here. So at the end of the day, demand always win. You know, like as one trade lawyers put it, people want stuff, and they'll get it one way or the other. So that's what I wanted to discuss with you today, Tariff. And I'm very curious, what is your strategy for navigating strategy? Do you even have a strategy actually to navigate tariff? Are you playing defense? Are you ahead of the game? You know, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to reach out. I'm very interested in what you're doing in your own organization. Good luck with that. It's obviously a huge impact. We're seeing here already in Canada, a lot of companies are already going belly up even actually the tariff have been implemented officially yesterday, even if there was, I think, on auto manufacturer a 30-day delay again. Some companies have already gone belly up, layoff are already going. There is a total decline in capital investment. So, I mean, in terms of strangling the Canadian economy, the Trump administration has already been very successful. So good luck with everything, whether you're in the US, you're in Canada, or elsewhere. Good luck with your business. Wishing you a lot of creative solutions to find ways to not only survive, but thrive as well. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.